Now the chapter is about page caching. Caching is a very common term which is used in web development. Sometimes if something does not work, we always tell to some other developer, like it's better you clear your cache and then again restart your project or restart the server. What is this caching all about? First of all, caching a page means it will nothing but it will improve your speed. It's up to the speed performance to increase your performance of your website. Caching is said to be very helpful. Okay. If a page is cached, what happens if a page is cached? Then it will be stored in its fully rendered state. It is like your cache will be already there. For example, you are always calling for login or registration page of a website. So it happens always that you keep on calling that website, that page is automatically cached in your web application folder. So you don't have to send the request again to the server as and when needed. You have your own page, you know automatically like, yeah, I need this page for this URL. So you don't have to send a request to the server and waiting for the response and so on. Yes, it happens sometimes that you make some kind of modifications in UI front. In such a scenario, page caching is said to be very important. It helps in clearing the cache and improve the performance, and then you can reload the page and you can see whatever the changes are there. So page caching is a very important thing which is done in CodeIgniter. So again, I'd like to repeat, caching a page is a very common thing which is used to increase the speed performance. Okay, so when the server gets a request for the cache page, it will be directly sent to the browser. It will not go to the entire procedure the way it does. Okay, in CodeIgniter, cache files are stored in application cache folder. If you remember for the folder structure in CodeIgniter, I've already described that all those application kind of the coding structures are defined in cache folder. So caching can be enabled on per page basis. While enabling the cache, we need to set the time. It is very important that you set a time for it until which it needs to be remain in the cache folder. So as long as your time is not set, the file will be present in the cache folder. Once you say or call for the delete function or something like remove the cache, then automatically all the associated files will be removed from the cache folder. Okay, so let's have a look with our code base. First of all, I'll show you two things: enabling and disabling caching in CodeIgniter with the simple functions, and then we will create our own controller and view where your view will be cached in application subfolder cache, and once you delete the particular cache, this particular cache which is there in the view, the cache view which is there in application cache folder will be deleted. So let's move to our code base where we'll create a controller and the view for the functional person. Let's start with the basic description of syntax. So I'll create it in my blank file. First is enabling cache. So enabling cache syntax is as follows. So I'm taking it in the comment part. So it will be like $this output and cache parameter will be given over here. So cache will take a parameter that is $n. What is $n is the number of minutes you wish the page to remain in the cache. Okay, so this is the amount of minutes you can give for the web application. The next one is disabling cache. So disable cache file gets deleted when it expires. So in this, the syntax is like $this and output, my parameter will be a function that is delete underscore cache. So this is our basic syntax. And if I want to delete a particular cache for some folder, say for example foo bar, so in that case I'll say $this output and I'll mention delete underscore cache. This will be my function with the folder name that is foo and bar. Okay, so this is the way it is done. So my syntax for the cache management is clear. Now I'll create a new controller for cache. So that I'll do inside my controllers. I'll save my file under controllers, application controllers. So it is under controller section. I'll name the file as cache controller. So my file is cache I have cache controller already in my system. So I'll just rename it. My file will be like cache1 underscore controller.php. So I've created a cache over here. The cache controller will have the basic syntax the same way we had it with the various other controllers. So now I'll create a file inside the PHP codes. It will be class cache1 underscore controller extends ci underscore controller. Now inside controller, I will take the complete logic for cache. So with that, I'll start with the basic function, that is index. So I'll say public function index. I'll mention $this. I'm going to output my cache within a 1 minute parameter. So I'll say output cache and the parameter is 1. We saw that 1 is the number of minutes. So I will take my page cache in 1 minute. After that comes $this. I'm going to load a view. So that is $this load view and the parameter is test. My name of the view will be test, which we will create. So this was in our basic function of index, that is the default function of the controller, where we declared that the cache will be rendered and it will be rendered inside our view, and the name of the view was test. The next function is the delete function. So I'll create that public function delete underscore file underscore cache, and inside that I'll mention my cache, that is cache controller. So I'll say $this output and it is delete underscore cache. So that is mentioned inside the cache controller. So I say cache controller. Okay, so I've declared my cache controller because I'm going to route this cache1 underscore controller as cache controller in my routes.php. So I will keep delete underscore cache and the name of the controller inside it. After that, what is the next thing? I'm going to create a new file and this file will be my views, that is test.php. So let's save this file under application folder, views section that we'll have under views. So inside views, I'll save the file name as test.php. So let's save it. So I'm just saving it as test.php. Okay. Now I'll create a basic HTML page for our cache to check whether caching is done or not. We'll just create a simple doc type element, that is doc type HTML I'm mentioning. Now comes the HTML tags, HTML. Inside that I'll specify my head tag. Head tag will have the meta char set, so I'll say meta and char set equal to UTF-8. So I'm mentioning my meta char set. So inside that I will call for a title. My title over here is about the cache management. So you can specify any of the title you wish to. So I just give a simple title, like it's nothing but a CodeIgniter page caching. So after mentioning of the title name, after creating the head section, we'll move to our body section. So I'll create body, and inside body, I'll call for CodeIgniter view example. I'll mention it in H2 tags. So this will be CodeIgniter view example. Okay. I mentioned the name. I created a view now. So my cache file will be associated to this view, that is test.php. Last but not the least step is to route my particular cache controller. So I will take it inside cache controller as $route. So the name of the controller was cache1 underscore controller. I'm going to route it as per my delete cache function. So inside $route, I'll specify the name as, it should be in brackets, square brackets, cache controller. So we'll take it in that way, cache controller, and the name of the controller was cache1 underscore controller. Cache1, it's not cache underscore controller. We already have a file of cache controller. Now the next function is to root our delete function. So we'll take the same way we did for our routing of the particular controller. So I'll just root my delete function. So that is $root cache controller delete. Inside that, I'll call for I'll call for the cache one underscore controller and delete. My file name was delete file cache. So I'll call for the same file name over here. Better is to copy paste the particular file inside my routing.php. So here I take it. So I'm done with my routing section. So my next step is to check whether the cache file is done properly or not inside my browser section. So I'll just go check my code base in my browser section, call for this particular file and check whether my caching is done properly or not. The important point to note over here is that your routing is completely constrained to the controller section, so you should maintain that thing. So this is my project in the project code base. Let's go to our URL, that is cache controller, which we created now. Yes, we got our view. The view is loaded properly. Now, if whether the file is cached or not is properly checked inside our application folder. So inside application, we have a cache folder. There we need to check whether the file is cached or not. So this is our application folder, and inside application I have a cache. So inside cache, if you can see, this is my file which we cache right now. I'm just opening in my bracket section. So here you'll get a better picture. Like this was the file which we created now as test.php in the views section, and with the headers and enc type is also specified to it. So my file is being cached properly inside the cache folder. So this folder will be called whenever we request for a page because it is cached. Now I delete this, so the file should be deleted from my cache directory. So let's check. So yes, my file is deleted from the cache directory because we call for this function which deletes your cache directory. So in this way, caching is easily managed in CodeIgniter in a better way. So next chapter, we'll focus about the various other functionalities. See, if you call for the page again, the page is again cached and it is easily visible in my folder with the particular timestamp, which means that I recently cached this particular file. So cache management is quite simpler and easier in CodeIgniter perspective. So this becomes easier for us to get the caching of the particular files. Hooks. This is some special feature which is seen in CodeIgniter. CodeIgniter has hooks, and these are nothing but the events which can be called before and after the execution of a program. Okay, so it nothing but does is to allow some set of code which can be reused again and again instead of writing it from the base level. So it allows executing a script with a specific path in CodeIgniter execution process without modifying any core files. Core files over here comes with a perspective which can be a controller, which can be a model or any so on. But in CodeIgniter, the hooks, which are nothing but the events, are like consisting of two basic types. Application one is the one which is present in application config hooks PHP. The other one is in application hooks. So there are two basic types which we can see it over here. One is like inside the configuration, which includes hooks.php file. Here you can create it with respect to some class name, controller name, and so on. Whereas in other thing, application hooks, here the situation is completely different. Here we have a set of hooks which can be called, like set of hooks means that a web application can have many hooks which can be used wherever it is needed. So that all completely comprises of a list of hooks which can be implemented again and again for a particular project. So this was regarding the hook structure. Moving on to our code base, we analyze like how a hooks is being enabled, how we define a particular hook, and what are the structure for defining a particular loop. So these all comprises of this chapter, like defining a hook, how it is called inside a controller, how a hook is being enabled. So let's move to our code base where we will analyze the complete structure of hook enabling. This is our code base. We'll start with the code base. Here we'll create our hook. So first of all, I'll remove all the unwanted files. And now we'll start with the first step of hooks is enabling a hooks. So that is done under application config, and we have a file name which is called as hooks.php where all the hooks is being declared over here. It's like a part where you are defining a particular hook. Then that is done in specific with respect to this file, that is hooks.php. But inside config.php, if you'll check, there is a parameter for hooks enabling, which set true will enable the hooks and will automatically load all the hooks in the CodeIgniter. So this parameter is enable hooks as it is visible over here. For now it is false, but if you set the value as true, then it will automatically enable all the hooks which are designed in it. So that's why this functionality of reusing all the hooks again and again can be implemented automatically. So for now I'm setting my enable hooks as true. So this will automatically enable all my hooks over here. So this parameter is set true for now. After this comes the logic of defining a hook. A hook is always defined under hooks.php file, which is there inside application config folder. So here I'm going to define a template hook. So a hook can be defined, I'm just mentioning in the comment section, hook can be defined in the application config, which is the subfolder, and inside config hooks.php file. Okay, so this is the way it is done. Now we are going to create a temporary or a demo kind of a hook, which will give you the better scenario, like how a hook is being designed with the help of the syntax. So that is done under $hook pre-controller. So this means the controller name, and inside that I'll pass the array. So the array will include all the parameters in it. So the parameters will be the class, file name, and the associated file path with various type of parameters. So here I'll call for the array, and inside array my first parameter should be class, because that should call for the associated class name. So class equal to class name, and after that I'll call for a function. So I'll say function. So the function should call for the function name as the way we did for class, calling up for the class name. Associated function will call or load the particular hook, and the functionality will be implemented in your web application. So that is the main constraint. So the second parameter for us after class name is function name. So we will follow the similar structure in defining any kind of a hook. So let's start with function name. So I say the parameter is function name. This is just an example. Function name. Okay. After that, I'll call for a file. So I say file name inside here as file name, and my file will be the PHP extension file. So I will say file name.php. It is always important to mention the extension. If you forget about the extension, then it will be a problem for you. So file name.php is mentioned over here. Then I say file path. So my path should be specified over here. So I say file path hooks, that is my file. So I say hooks, and now I'll set the extra parameters which are important. So that is params, and the param should be included in quotes. And these parameters are nothing but the one which calls for n number of arrays. Arrays having various type of elements in it. So the params, it includes parameters which you can pass in your script, and it's completely optional. So for now I keep a blank array, or we can call for a number of parameters inside it, but this is just a syntax I'm focusing on, which will give you what exactly the hooks logic is all about, where various parameters takes place. So we have file path hooks, but this can change if your file is located in some other folder or it has any type of subfolders in it, then it will automatically change. So you should keep this point in notice that where exactly my folder is or which is the destination directory for my web application folder, and based on that you will set the file path over here. So this was about the file path constraint, and the params will have the optional parameters, so that is also said to be completely optional. So this was analyzing with respect to defining a particular hook. So hook definition is done inside hooks.php. So this is another path name which I'm specifying, like if my path name changes accordingly, then it will look in this way, the way I did for office. So inside array, I will not specify anything for now, but if you want to specify, you can specify it within the codes of your array section. So this was the complete logic for defining a particular hooks. So this is the complete syntax. You should keep it in your mind, starting with class, function, file name, file path, and parameters, where pre-controller is nothing but your controller name. So this was the main constraint or the logic for defining a hook inside hooks.php. After this, what is the next outlook? So there can even multiple calls will be possible over here. We can call a controller multiple times inside hooks.php. It is not restricted to only one array. So this is also a plus point for hooks. You can create n number of hooks with the respective controller. So there is no limit for that. Now after this thing, the next step we need to analyze is like how this hook is being declared. I'll comment this part because this was just a syntax which we'll focus on. So now I have enabled my hooks with the parameter of enable hooks as true. The next thing I'm going to do is like inside the controller section, I'll create a new file. So let's create a new file. And over there I'll create a controller. So controller name will be say example.php. So with example.php, first of all I'll save it inside application, controllers, and the name of the file is example controller. So example.php. So with this, I will create a hooks demo example. So I'll create my controller under $?PHP braces for PHP codes also. Here I'll define a class with example, extends, and CI controller. So it extends CI controller, so we'll mention that over here. And after that, I'll say public function will be initialized. So I'll say public function. This is a default function. So here I will call for echo. The parameter I'm going to send over here is a normal string function. I just want to check if my hooks is working or not. So I'll say echo CodeIgniter tutorial. So this is my default function, okay. So if I run this particular function in my browser, automatically it should depict the string message of CodeIgniter tutorial. So based on this controller, we are going to create a hook. So that hook creation is done inside our hooks.php. Before that, I'll do a routing. So my routing will be done over here as example. It will be routed as example. Okay. So this is actually optional. You can change it as the way you need it. So inside my browser, I'm going to call for my example file. So I give this output as CodeIgniter tutorial because we called for a default index function which called for this message of CodeIgniter tutorial. We printed that message using echo function. The next step is to create a hooks file, and that I'm going to create as exm.php, say for example exam.php, where I'm going to create a simple string and call this string inside my controller. So inside hooks folder of application, I'm going to create a file. The name of the file is exm.php as it is visible. Here I'll call my simple template controller the way we did for example.php. So here I'm going to specify the class name as class exm extends ci underscore controller, and over here I'll call for a function. So my function will be with the access modifier as public. So that is public function tut. So this is my function I'm calling for. And here I'm going to print the echo message, that is welcome to the demonstration, as it is a demonstration for hooks. So I'll say welcome to the demonstration of hooks. So this is done. After this, I'll call for my hook folder. So hooks folder is nothing but inside application config hooks folder. So here I'm going to set the parameter the way we did over here with the various set of parameters inside an array. So my controller, pre-controller will be verified in the same way. I will have a pre-controller, but the class will be here exm because we call the class as exm inside my file exm.php. Function name is tut and the file name is exm.php and the file path will be hooks only because it is inside the hooks controller. So now the output should actually concatenate with my welcome welcome message, like it is a demonstration with the previous line that this is a CodeIgniter tutorial, some kind of a message in it, the way we did. So any printing messages or any echo messages which I embed in my system should be represented here. So I say example over here. So here I get a welcome message like welcome to the demonstration of hooks, and the CodeIgniter tutorial message was there existing in my controller which we designed previously. So in this way the embedding of hooks takes place very easily because hooks are nothing but the events which can be called before and after the execution of the program, and it allows executing a script in a very better manner, which is a very plus point for CodeIgniter. So in this way you can call your hooks, you can embed them and keep it the way you need it. So that is a very plus point when you try to implement hooks. Also the important thing is that it allows executing your script. As I mentioned earlier in this chapter, execution of a script with a specific path in CodeIgniter execution process without modification of any of the core files. So this was about the complete understanding of the hooks, how hooks are implemented with the CodeIgniter, like with controller, and how they are enabled first and later when they are defined and kept inside the application folder. This gives a complete understanding like hooks are quite beneficial for any of the web application framework for CodeIgniter. If you use CodeIgniter, hooks are definitely a plus point for any developer. So let's move to next chapter, understanding more about CodeIgniter features.